Hey everybody, it's Jim here. I read through a lot of the comment section of the video where we did dye the neck on this. I asked for your opinion on what you wanted to do as far as the electronics, specifically the pickups, go on this Squier before we put it back together, and the majority of you wanted me to keep things into budget. So what I've opted to do is to use the Amazon electronics that it originally came with, but there was a problem. I needed a whole new control plate. So I decided I was going to order a pre-wired one from Amazon. Now, Kaish, I believe, is the name of this brand. It does come with the actual mounting screws, which is nice. It doesn't have a three-way switch that is, US spec on it, but that's not to be expected. It's going to be an import one. However, for a build like this, we'll give it a shot. We'll see if it's any good, because I needed a control plate anyway. One that would fit would have been about the same price as this thing all loaded up together. So why not give it a try? Initial thoughts on it? Yeah, it feels a little rough. Actually, the volume feels better than the tone control. Anyways, you're gonna see this is the style of wiring that we're going to have to deal with here. So the neck pickup will go on these two, and the bridge will go on these two. And actually, this is bent out of the box. That one right there. Oh, whatever. It is what it is. We're just going to have to address it, and we're going to work with what we have. For our bridge, we're going to be using this, it looks like kind of a Hot Rails thing going on here. And it's got a bunch of different wires. So you have one red with a white taped together with it. You have two grounds here, a green and then an unshielded, and then the black, which is just a traditional ground. We're going to tape off this green and shield all together, and we're just going to use this straight up as is, no coil splitting or anything like that for today. But to begin, we have to put it back in. So alright, so this is the neck pickup. This has no markings whatsoever on it, so I can't tell you where to buy this if this ends up sounding pretty decent. I do think I remember being told by the person who sent this to me it was an Epiphone P90, but honestly, no markings. It's anybody's guess. So if we end up liking it, I'll have no way to refer you to it. However, if you like the split blade or the kind of hot rail thing we got going on the bridge, I have seen those for under, I think, $20 on Amazon, which is, that's pretty cheap, but it's par for the course with all of these things that we find on that specific website. Good enough for now. Let's route it through. Now this will be interesting because we're going to have to actually ground this to the three-way toggle switch itself, which I'm really annoyed by that being bent. There, good as new for our three-way toggle. That is, oh, this thing is cheap as hell. It was already bent like that. I had to bend it back into place. This is gonna be a fun one. Okay, let's get this off. On the potentiometers themselves, they just say CF, and the three-way toggle switch is labeled K357. Now, we're not going to do any soldering in this room or film any of it. I'm going to do it outside after I'm done with this section, but I just wanted to make note, the actual connections themselves, they look to be pretty decent, honestly, and that's pretty impressive considering the price point. But this three-way toggle switch, this thing feels so cheap. Like if I actually put any force into this whatsoever, I could just bend it and snap it right off with no problems. And that's not the case with a typical switch that I would be used to using here. We're not going to need this ground right here because we do have a ground already coming from the bridge, so I'll just have to disconnect that. But the only other thing that's unique about this installation, because we are using a P90 in the neck position, you could see the leads are not going to be long enough for me to get the hot and then get to the pot itself to ground it. So we're going to ground it probably on the actual back of the three-way toggle right there on the casing. Voila, guitar, kind of. Okay, camera's going off for right now. We're going to take this into the garage where I do not have adequate lighting and or power to keep filming, but I'll see you just a second. If you had watched the earlier video with this guitar where I dyed this neck using the Feeblings India ink, we noticed something. Well, I noticed something when I was polishing the frets. I was using a product called Fret Knot. Typically when I'm using Fret Knot, I don't cover the actual fingerboard because it's not something I think about. It never has any negative effects. However, when using it after on the India ink, it is starting to come off in certain areas more than others. So if you're somebody who does dye your fretboard using the Feeblings India ink, cover up the actual wood itself on the fingerboard if you don't want any of it to kind of get removed or taken away if you do decide to polish the frets with a product like Fret Knot. I can only speak to that one doing it. I would assume Gorgamite would be the same thing. However, just be careful because now it is not a uniform finish, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead. We're gonna play through the Friedman today. I got this thing tuned up. We're gonna test out the wiring harness, the pre-wired control plate from Kaish, I believe is how you say it. We'll check out how this thing tapers and how it sounds in general. Alright, so not bad. Let's try out the tone pop, see the same thing. That one doesn't have as progressive of a sweep to it. Once you get to about 75% of the way, it starts to take a little bit of the top end off, but before that, really wasn't doing all that much. The switch itself, if you're curious about how this feels, whether it feels really cheap or not, it's not, you know, a super high-end switch, but it feels fine. It doesn't feel as cheap as even something like the Squier Classic 3-way switch, and I really do like the guts of those guitars, but the electrical components on those are not ideal, and they're not exactly my favorite or what I would choose to replace parts with if I was doing a project build such as this one. So let's try the P90 real quick. Both pickups. Overall, not bad. But if you're putting in a rail into the bridge of a Telecaster, you're going to want to use gain. So let's go ahead and crank it up a little bit. We'll stay on the normal channel and not the boosted gain that the Pink Taco has on it. Now, I rolled the volume down immediately because I knew this thing was going to feed back with this much amount of gain from the amplifier. There are no pedals on right now. If I crank the volume, you see what I mean. That's not an appealing sound. And it's not what I expected from this sort of pickup. I know I'm not getting a traditional Telecaster sound because obviously this is a rail style pickup. It's a stacked humbucker and a single coil sized pickup, but I expected it to be able to handle that without any sort of feedback, especially at that level, because I'm not even over the top on the Friedman as of right now. And yeah, I guess it is what it is. I don't think it sounds bad, but that is a little bit disappointing. This bridge pickup is a little bit dark for my taste, so I pumped the treble up on the Friedman itself to about 8, I believe, and we're going to give it a try with a little bit of a over-the-edge breakup, but nothing too hairy, and we'll try and see how the volume interacts with it when we control it that way. Let's try the same thing with the P90. It's not a bad guitar. It's functional. It stays in tune really well, as we're figuring out right now. It's stable. It's a Telecaster. There's not much that can go wrong on one of these. You'd have to make a pretty egregious error with either frets just being unmanageably bad, nut being unmanageably poorly cut, or the electronics not being soldered correctly, which unfortunately was how this guitar came, but not the end of the world because it was an easy fix. I realized we didn't do a whole ton of playing on this, but I'm going to give a quick summation. I think the real star of the show here is the control plate, because in a pinch, with how Amazon works, and I have no affiliates with Amazon or anything like that, but you know, 1 or 2 days depending on when you order it, if you have Prime, you have something that does drop in. It's really simple. It's not rocket science. I would still recommend, if you don't need something super immediate, buying CTS components and buying a CRL or a Switchcraft 3-way toggle switch if you could find one available. They're out there. There's a lot of them, but they're not always going to be immediately available for delivery to you, which is kind of the appeal of something like this. Or if you really are on a tighter budget, this came with the plate itself. And one of the reasons why this was appealing, because the plate itself, I think, was $11. Or I could try out this whole thing for 13, 14 bucks. No brainer if you ask me. The guitar itself, it's not bad. Like I said, tuners are fine. They're a little loose, but it's to be expected on a guitar at this price point. The neck, after a truss rod adjustment and some kind of smoothing out of the fret edges, I figured I would do that while I was in here. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. And the pickups, they are what they are. As you can hear, they're definitely aggressive. They've definitely got a lot of low end on them. And, you know, you can always dial it out a little bit more with your amplifier. But some people, they want this kind of tone. They want this kind of vibe going on when they play. But that's it. That's the summary of the Partscaster. You guys wanted to see it with a rail, and now you did. Anything else you want to see with this guitar, or if you want to see a long form where we actually go through some different effects and see how this thing sounds, maybe potentially a different amplifier, maybe we'll do that. But thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, useful, and or entertaining, let me know in the comment section down below. But hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take it easy.